trading, getting rid of, moving this, doing that. And really, those moves are just spinning your wheels if you look at it. He made smart decisions that brought in players.
But Jeff Bauer, Greg, has that experience behind him. Jeff Bauer is this guy that has that experience as a GM, as a head coach. He's been in the league a long, long time.
Does it matter to you who's in charge, or does it matter to you the results that you get?
Robert Sarver's in charge, right? I think Robert Sarver's in charge. Is he willing to back off a little bit in this whole thing?
So I've been at that arena as much as anybody over the last year. Right. I haven't seen Robert Sarver. I used to see him when I first started coming.
Right.
He would be there. I've talked to people around the league. I've talked to people around the team. I've heard from a lot of different folks. They tell me that Sarver used to be really hands-on. He has been less hands-on. The number one job of a general manager, the number one job of your top executive is to communicate the vision and strategy to the guy who signs the checks. That's James Jones's job. James Jones can do that. Now, you're talking about Bauer. Bauer is the nuts and bolts guy. Bauer's the guy who knows who to call, knows when to call them, knows how to make the deals happen because he's done it. Jones understands it conceptually. Bauer understands it in a practical way. Am I saying this is going to work? I think it has a chance,
You're
right?
calming me down a little bit.
The trick to it is to not look for this to be one of those things where you sign Tom Chambers, you get Kevin Johnson, and then you draft Dan Marley, and then boom, you go from 30 wins to 60 wins. We're not looking at that. What we're looking at is a slower, steadier build where you draft guys like Mikal Bridges who can do the job that they're asked to do and then show you an ability also to get better.
So the big question is Igor Kokoshkov the head coach to lead this team in the future, or is he done this year?
I hope so. Igor, when I saw him last, had the look of a man who knew that maybe it wasn't going to be what he had hoped it would be, right? Look, you win 19 games. You're last in defensive efficiency, or second to last in defensive efficiency. You're second to last or last in pretty much every statistic you can come up with, from assist to turnover ratio to points in the paint. You name it, it was bad, and it was bad in every way. But scouts rave about this guy. I go back to the Washington game.
Players don't.
Oh, no, they do.
In that anonymous, what was that, the anonymous poll by the NBA players? He was like third worst on the list. It was who do you want to play for, who do you not want to play for?
Yeah, I talk to guys. I look them in the eye when I talk to them, and I can trust what they tell me. I know that guys who used to play for Igor in other stops, whether that be Orlando, whether that be Detroit, whether that be Utah, they told me good things about him. The flaw with Igor is that he doesn't communicate in a very emotional way. Right? He's an analytical thinker, and you've got guys who are so young that they might need somebody who can connect to them in an emotional way. Okay, let me give you another piece of it, though. Let's go back to the Washington game. It was Washington. Devin's going for 50. It's his second night in a row going for 50. The Suns are down by 3. They're down by 3 with, a few seconds left, and they've got to get a play. Everybody in the building knows it's either going to Devin or it's going to Troy Daniels. Troy Daniels, one of the best shooters in the NBA. Igor draws up a play. There's nobody within 5 feet of Troy. He gets it in the corner. He doesn't execute the 3, but it wasn't the fault of the play. I think that if you've got a guy like Igor, you need a more veteran group, right? And if you're going to have a young group, then you need somebody who can communicate. And again, it's an emotional way because these guys are accustomed to being motivated. They're not accustomed to self-motivation yet, just at this stage in their career. I hope Igor stays. I think he's a smart and a good guy.
All right, let's change gears now. Let's talk about the NFL draft because the Arizona Cardinals are on the draft right now. Right? Here we go. They're on the clock, I should say. Here we go with the Arizona Cardinals on the clock. The first overall pick for the first time since 1958 when they were the Chicago Cardinals. That's been a long time. That's a long drought.
That's a minute.
That's a minute. They've had the first overall pick 4 times previously, back in 1939, 1940, 1945, and 1958, all in Chicago.
All right, then.
Here we go. So, all the talk right now, Greg, and you know this, since the NFL Combine, when Kyler Murray measured in at, 5'10" and an eighth, Kyler Murray is going to the Arizona Cardinals. What's your take on Kyler Murray?
Look, I'm kind of tired of folks talking about Kyler and whether or not Kyler's going to get hurt, right? Every quarterback gets hurt. That's what happens because the defensive linemen and the linebackers are big, gigantic, hard-hitting guys, right? Cam Newton is as big of a quarterback as you're going to find. Ben Roethlisberger is as big of a quarterback as you're going to find. Those guys are always hurt. The way to not get hurt at quarterback is to not get hit. Doesn't matter how big you are, if you're not getting hit, you're not getting hit. The other thing about Kyler Murray is if Cliff Kingsbury wants to run the air raid, if that is his system and that is his guy, you give him the tools that he needs to do the job, right? If you're going to get a baker to bake you a cake, you give him the flour that he asks for. If you're going to get a carpenter to build you a house, you give him the hammer that he requests. And that is what I would do if I were Steve Keim. But maybe Steve's thinking defense.
I know, right? and maybe that's the case. But Kyler Murray led his team in high school, Allen, Texas, to 3 consecutive high school state championships. Who does that? Right?
Listen, and that's a big division, right? I've been talking to people about it. They tell me that Kyler is the best high school quarterback in the state of Texas, and we all know how football crazy Texas is.
Yeah. And that's the way it is. And then he leads Oklahoma to the semifinals against Alabama and almost makes a bit of a comeback late in the game in that one.
So, listen, Kyler Murray did everything that you would ask a quarterback to do in college in the one season that he had an opportunity to do it, right? I just happen to think that if you've got a guy who can do the thing that your coach asks for, you got to try to make that pairing happen. Now, the real trick there is at first when I heard the comments, like I thought that Cliff Kingsbury was probably just talking up an opponent. If you look at when Texas Tech was going to play Oklahoma, it just didn't really, I wasn't really thinking that it was legit. Then you read the full context of the quote. Then you hear what Kingsbury has to say afterward. Then you just start to examine the offense. And then you just start to ask around and start to talk to people. Yo, this could be a legitimate thing. Unless they think Rosen's the guy.
Okay, so now Josh Rosen is the other question, right? Right now, I know we've got Suns up behind us, but we're talking to Cardinals in the draft right now. They're on the clock. What do you do with Josh Rosen? You just drafted him number 10 overall last year.
So, if there's a good enough trade package, I'm comfortable making the trade, but if it's me, I keep them both. We have seen...
Keep them both.
In recent years, we've seen a need for 2 quarterbacks. Nick Foles was the backup quarterback in Philadelphia. The starter, Carson Wentz, goes out. Nick Foles steps in. Everybody remembers him from what he did down in Tucson. And the next thing you know, the Philadelphia Eagles win a Super Bowl because they had 2 quarterbacks who could get it done. We've seen Tom Brady not be able to play, and Jimmy Garoppolo steps in. 2 quarterbacks are better than 1. The problem with having 2 good quarterbacks is you might be in a situation where it's a salary cap thing. That's not going to be the case here because they're going to both be on rookie scale deals. The 2 of them together aren't going to cost as much as Sam Bradford cost by himself.
But there are 2 different types of quarterbacks, right? I mean, Kyler Murray threw, 90% of his passes were out of the pocket, but Josh Rosen is a pure pocket quarterback, right?
Are they completely different? Do you remember last season when Josh Rosen was running for his life? Every single thing in football is about system. Every single thing in football is about fit. And if you ask a guy to do it, if he's got the physical capabilities, he can do what you're asking. It's not like you're going to give him the ball and say, hey, yo, you're a pocket guy, and then he's going to just take off and scramble. He's not going to play. I think Rosen has more ability to move around. I think Rosen's accurate. I just don't think he's as good in the system as Murray already is. I think they both can do it.
That's been my point all along. I have nothing against Josh Rosen after 1 year because how do we grade him? Right?
No, you can't. No, absolutely no.
19 different offensive linemen playing in front of him throughout the season. No receivers to speak of other than Larry. Early in the season, Christian Kirk emerging. That's it. There's no running game to speak of. And bad offensive coordinators, bad coaching staff.
It was bad.
But I do think Kyler Murray is just a better fit for Cliff Kingsbury's offense.
Unless you think Rosen can get the job done and you want to go defense, in which case this guy Quinnen Williams really seems like a legit contender, right? Quinnen Williams, defensive tackle from Alabama, blows stuff up. And he was doing that at the highest level of SEC football. If you're going to go back to a 3-4, which the Cardinals are, you could really use a linchpin right there in the middle, somebody who can really disrupt things from the middle. That makes it easier for the edge rushers to get home. If that's the case, you then trade down with the Raiders. You get a bunch of picks. You just loot them. Get whatever you can get for them. Then wait for your turn, get Quinnen Williams, and get all these picks. You could really be in a good spot if you think Rosen can do the job.
But you get the feeling that Cardinal fans might be a little bit put off by a trade down when you have the first overall pick for the first time in how many years? Since 1958.
So I think the Cardinals fans want to win football games. Do you want to win football games with the number 1 pick? Of course, that's a lot of fun. But if you trade it down, if you get a big haul, if you do something amazing, I think that's all right too. If you go back to the Dallas Cowboys, Herschel Walker trade, I think about that constantly. Also, the Cowboys had Steve Walsh and Troy Aikman, and they were kind of drafted back-to-back, and that was a real mess, right? But it turned out great. There's a lot of parallels here that were with Dallas back then. And again, you might have wanted to win with Herschel Walker, but you're also happy to have won with the bounty that Herschel Walker brought you.
Yeah, great stuff, Greg. I appreciate it. Greg
Thanks,
Moore,
man.
Sports columnist, Arizona Republic, azcentral.com. Great stuff. I appreciate your takes on that.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
ABC 15 is the place to watch the NFL Draft. We'll bring you each and every pick live starting Thursday, April 25th, from the Cardinals War Room in Tempe to the main stage in Nashville as lives change and dreams are realized. This will be a game-changing moment for the Arizona Cardinals, no question about it, and it all starts right here on ABC 15. Dan?